Political Science 203, State and Local Government. How are you? My name is Michael Torgeson, and I will be your Sherpa through this adventure. A few things you need to know in order to be successful in the class. First off, you don't have to have taken PS201 or 202. It would have helped, mostly for background information and to round out the symmetry of the thing. We will be talking about some federal government stuff, but you can backfill your knowledge using the internet or asking questions in the discussion forums. The intro chapter reading is from the national government courses, and it'll give you a good insight into where we're coming from so you can better grasp where we're going. It also has the added benefit of making good test questions. You will need the book. Right now, I am working off of the 6th edition, and we all know that there will be a 7th edition sometime soon. You can use earlier editions of the book, but if you do, some of the content might not perfectly align with the page references that I have in the lectures and in the videos. But you're college people, you're allegedly smart, so you should be able to line things up pretty good. Now, this book covers a semester's worth of information, but RCC is on a quarter system. Houston, we have a problem. For each chapter, I created a read-skim list for you. Close read, you want to read that information for content. Take notes on it, reread your notes. For the skim stuff, know the key terms, get the big ideas, but don't really delve too deeply into it. Your book is going to have some charts like this. Charts like this make Baby Yoda hide. The information on these charts is easily found on the internet. I will not ask you to recite them. I will not test you on it. It's good information so you can see how Oregon stacks up with the United States in general. And if you're not in Oregon, take a look at your state too. I put links to the websites in the lecture PowerPoint slides. This is so that you can learn more about a specific topic. When you hover over the link, you'll see the URL, and if it's to a Wikipedia entry, that's for your information and optional but recommended reading. If the link is to a non-Wikipedia entry, that is mandatory reading. The syllabus, read it, love it, live it. This is our contract for the course. If there is confusion about the syllabus, please let me know, preferably sooner than 2 days before the class ends. The syllabus and accompanying general course information are both in the intro folder. The course calendar is also in the intro folder. Due to the layout of the text, there are going to be parts of the book you'll need to read, parts of the book you'll need to skim. There are going to be some sections that are going to be combined, partly for brevity and partly because they really go together well. I will outline the read-skim parts in each lecture and in each presentation. My contact information, torgeson@rogecc.edu. I check my email twice a day, morning and evening. First week of the term and last week of the term, I check it several times a day. Voicemails are delivered to my email, and I check the class at least once, usually twice a day. If you leave me an email to my regular email account, or if you leave me a voicemail, please tell me which class you're in, because I'm teaching 3 of them this term. So, that being said, let's get this going. The class is called American Government, not American Politics. You may ask what the difference is between government and politics, and I like to explain it like this. Government is the game, politics is how it's played. That being said, it's nearly impossible to talk about the game without talking about the players, the personalities, the history. I'd be like talking about baseball without mentioning Abner Doubleday, Joe DiMaggio, or Steve Yeager. In this class, we focus predominantly on the game, but not on the players. Now, it's going to be unavoidable. We will have to discuss some of the players, but only as they relate to the rules of the game, the changes to the rules, and other stuff like that. I do not want this class to devolve into a flame war between competing ideologies. It helps no one learn and only serves to polarize people against each other, and if you've looked around recently, we're pretty polarized as it is. As the syllabus says, when you're speaking, remember, you have the freedom of speech, but you don't have freedom from the consequences of your speech. Each of us has strong, closely held beliefs and opinions. and these will, on occasion, conflict. You don't have to agree with everything you hear, but you have to respect the opinions of others. Use your best judgment to determine whether what you say falls under the category of open, honest debate, or whether it's rudeness, intolerance, or a personal attack. The former is encouraged, the latter is prohibited, and discrimination of any sort will absolutely not be tolerated. So now that that's out of the way, what are we going to cover? What are we going to cover in this course? The syllabus outlines what each section covers, and the book is your primary source for information, but there's so much more than that. For instance, why even have a government in the first place? I mean, can't we all just get along? Your political ideology is largely composed of your viewpoint on certain issues. Abortion, gun control, national defense, same-sex marriage, bunch of others. Your viewpoints are developed over a lifetime of experiences. And you gain your viewpoint from a number of different sources, whether you agree now with those sources or not, like parents, other family members, friends, and other social circles, your upbringing and your different experiences, and college and other non-family exposures to ideas. Some of your viewpoints can come directly from these sources, and others may come as a reaction to these sources. Source. An 18th century political philosopher named Hobbes, no wait, that's not right. An 18th century political philosopher, Thomas Hobbes, along with another contemporary, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, developed a framework by which society could develop a just system to govern itself. This system was called the social contract. Simplified, there are presuppositions upon which the framework would be built. First was that man lived in a state of nature. The state was one where man could do whatever he wanted to get away with. However, recognizing that a society could not survive on a might makes right philosophy, Hobbes and Rousseau suggested a radical new concept. Each of us puts his person and his power in common under the supreme direction of the general will. And in our corporate capacity, we receive from each member an indivisible part of the whole. Basically what this says is when we gather together, we're responsible for each other, and we will obey the dictates of the majority. The result is that the Founding Fathers took these ideas of Hobbes, Rousseau, John Locke, and other 18th century philosophers and used those as the basis of the Constitution. Speaking of the Constitution, if you haven't taken time to read it, now would be a good time to do so. It's pretty much the instruction manual for our form of government and has been the source of considerable acrimony ever since it was ratified in 1789. In it, it provides for the powers, directions, and means of change of the government of the United States. We're going to be using terms in this class that are similar, but have very different meanings. Democratic and Republican are spelled the same, but mean very different things. Big D, little r, it's confusing. When the term is capitalized, it refers to a political party. It's a proper noun of Democrats and Republicans. When the term is lowercase, it refers to the political system that is in effect. Democratic refers to a system of government, little d, where every citizen is knowledgeable and votes on every issue and decision that comes before the populace. Ancient Greece used to do it this way. Modern-day Switzerland does it this way. Could you imagine all 340-odd million of us getting into a true democratic system where there was a national vote on everything that came before the country? Little r, Republican, refers to the form of government we have in place right now. We elect people to go to the center of government at the city, county, state, or national level, and we become knowledgeable about the concerns of the day, and they make decisions based on the popular will or sometimes based on their best estimation of what is going to be good for the country. In our system of government, we use the shorthand democracy to describe how we govern ourselves. Little d, democracy. In a democracy, not to be confused with a direct democracy just a little bit ago, there are four main hallmarks that separate a democracy from other forms of government. Majority rule, protection of minority rights, protection of individual rights, and equality before the law. Let's break it down. Majority rule is what we've been taught since the very beginning of our childhood. The majority rules. How many times have you been playing a game and a dispute comes up? What's the response? Well, let's vote on it. That, basically on a larger scale, is what majority rule is all about. And in our experience, we learn to abide by the rule of majority. That being said, there has to be protection for minority rights. Majority rule, unchecked in its power, can lead to very bad things. So holding the hand of majority rule is the protection of minority rights. Simply because a majority of those who vote say a thing should be so, those in the minority cannot be steamrolled into unfair situations. Let's talk in the discussion forums about what types of situations have occurred in American history where the majority have violated the rights of the minority. I'll give you one. Slavery. Protection of individual rights. The main amendments to the Constitution that you all already read, right? They deal with individual rights. The First Amendment is the first 5 freedoms. The Fourth Amendment are civil rights. The Ninth Amendment covers, quote unquote, everything else. And equal protection of the law. Ensuring that before the law you are treated no better, no worse than any other person. The 14th Amendment guarantees this. Some more terms. There are terms that are going to be used in this course, again, seemingly interchangeably, kind of a distinction without a difference, but there are government-based terms and there are economics-based terms. The government-based terms we're going to use is democracy. The form of government where power rests in the people. The government gets its power from the consent of the governed, and the people can and do change the government based on popular vote. The flip side government form is communism. It's where power rests in the central government, the people receive their power, what little they get, as a gift from the government, and they cannot change the government without an armed uprising. The economics terms we're going to use are capitalism. This is where the factors of production, land, labor, capital, and management, are owned and controlled by the people with very little in the way of governmental interface. And the governmental interference that is there is worker and product safety, procure food and drug laws, wage and hour laws, stuff like that. The flip side of capitalism is socialism, where the factors of production are owned, controlled, and centrally planned by the government, and people have very little say in what they do or what they produce. Now, as you can see, socialism and communism often are used interchangeably. But you know what it's a good time for? It's time for a grid! You have here, across the top, do the people control the government, yes or no? Who controls the factors of production on the side, the government or the people? In a democratic socialism state, you have Sweden in practice, and theoretically in Cuba, but it doesn't really work that way. In the government controlling the factors of production as well as the government controlling the people, you have socialist communist. You have North Korea, you have China, you have Cuba. When the people control both the government and the factors of production, you have a capitalist democracy. The United States, Great Britain, Canada, bunch of them. If you have the people controlling the factors of production, but the government controlling the people, well, that just doesn't exist. It's there basically to fill out the Punnett square, but it really does not exist. Little more detail on the discussion boards. You're going to be posting and responding to posts on the discussion forums. I seriously encourage you to not only ask questions, but to engage on the forums. I'm going to be looking to see how persuasive your argument is. There's no real right or wrong answer that I'm looking for. But please, remember the prohibition against flame wars. I'm also going to warn you about fortune cookie responses. They're the ones that take little or no effort to write, show no independent thought, and are pretty much as empty and vapid and unappetizing as the cookie that they came out of. I'm really looking for true, higher level, 200 college level class thoughts that are appropriate and meaningful and show that not only do you understand the concepts, but that you can argue for or against the concepts.